It's 2 a.m. You're not awake because you chose to be. You're awake because your mind won't stop. Not solving anything, not planning anything, just replaying the conversation from 3 days ago. The decision you can't undo. The version of tomorrow where everything goes wrong. And here's what nobody tells you about that moment. Your mind isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is, it was built for a world that no longer exists. A world where every threat was physical, where the rustle in the grass meant something was coming, where anxiety kept you alive. That world is gone, but the mechanism is still running, every night, without your permission. So here's the truth that changes everything. You're not overthinking, you're trusting thoughts that aren't true. And once you understand that, the approach changes completely. Because you can't stop thoughts. You never could, but you can stop believing them. And the moment you do, they lose all power over you. In this video, 4 steps, tested by 3 philosophers across 2,000 years, not as theory, as daily practice. But first, you need to understand why your mind generates these thoughts. Because the answer is not what you think, and it changes everything about how you respond. Most of your negative thoughts sound like one of these. I'm not good enough. This is going to fail. They don't respect me. They feel true, not because they are, because they're familiar. Here's what's actually happening. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its entire purpose is to anticipate problems before they arrive. And for thousands of years, that was survival. The brain that predicted the lion was the brain that survived. But in the modern world, that same mechanism runs on emails, on conversations, on imagined expressions in meetings, on silence where a reply should be. And because the brain is designed to predict problems, it creates them out of nothing, out of a pause, a tone, a look. Watch what happens. You send an important message, no reply for 2 hours. One thought appears. They're ignoring me. That's all it takes. Because your brain doesn't stop there. They're annoyed at me. I said something wrong. This relationship is in trouble. I always do this. Your mood drops, your confidence drops, your behavior changes, and nothing happened, nothing, except a thought your brain created, and you believed. That's the problem, not the thought, your belief in it. And here's what most people do. They try to stop the thought. Don't think about it. Stay positive. Think of something else. It doesn't work. It never works. Because trying to suppress a thought is like trying not to think of a white bear. The moment you try, you've already failed. The Stoics discovered a different approach entirely. Not stopping thoughts, withdrawing belief from them. And it starts with one skill, so simple it sounds too easy, but so rarely practiced it will feel completely new. 2,000 years ago, 3 men discovered the same truth, in completely different circumstances. The first was an emperor. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome at its height. He managed a plague that killed 5 million people. He fought wars on multiple fronts. He dealt with betrayal inside his own family. And every morning, before engaging with any of it, he wrote, not policy, not strategy, private reflections, never intended for anyone else's eyes, reminders to himself about how to think, how to respond, how to keep his mind from running away with events. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The second was a slave. Epictetus owned nothing. He had no freedom of movement, no rights, no property, and yet he built the most powerful philosophy of personal freedom in recorded history. Because he understood something his owners never did. They could control everything outside him. They could not control what he chose to believe. He taught one principle above all others. Between every event and every response, there is a choice. Most people never find it. The trained mind finds it every time. The third was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. Seneca, advisor to emperors, author, philosopher, held himself accountable in writing every single evening. He examined his thoughts, his reactions, his beliefs, not to punish himself, to understand himself. 3 completely different lives, 1 identical discovery. Events don't disturb you. Your thoughts about events disturb you. And thoughts, unlike events, can be examined, questioned, refused. That is what this video teaches. not philosophy. The practical daily application of what these three men practiced in war, in slavery, in the corridors of power for the rest of their lives. You're in a meeting. Your manager asks for feedback on a project you led. A colleague speaks first, one sentence, slightly critical. Watch what your mind does next. They think I'm incompetent. Everyone in this room agrees. I shouldn't have been given this project. I don't belong here. One sentence from a colleague to a full identity crisis in under 10 seconds. Automatic, unquestioned, believed. That escalation is the pattern, and most people never see it because they're inside it. Marcus Aurelius practiced something the Stoics called prososche, continuous self-observation, not self-obsession, self-watching, the practice of stepping back from your own mind and watching what it does before deciding whether to follow it. Here's how you do it. The moment a negative thought appears, before you react, say this: I am having the thought that I don't belong here, not I don't belong here. I am having the thought that I don't belong here. Notice what that does. 6 words, and suddenly, you're not inside the thought anymore. You're watching it. That distance between the thinker and the thought is where your power lives. Because you cannot question a thought you are inside. You can only question a thought you can see. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning. Before engaging with the world, he examined his own impressions. He asked, is what I'm about to believe actually true, or is it just the first thing my mind produced? For the next 24 hours, every negative thought gets one label. This is a thought, not a fact. That's all. No analysis, no argument, no suppression, just a label. Because a labeled thought is a visible thought, and a visible thought can be examined, which is exactly what step 2 teaches you to do. Because noticing the thought is only the beginning. A noticed thought can still feel true, and a thought that feels true, believed or not, still has power. Step 2 is where you strip that power away. You're at a social event. Someone you respect is talking to a group. You walk over. The conversation shifts slightly. One person glances away, and your mind fires. Everyone in this group finds me boring. They were happier before I arrived. I always do this. I always make things awkward. Stop. Epictetus taught the discipline of assent, the practice of choosing which impressions deserve your belief. He said that just because a thought appears in your mind does not mean it has earned your trust. The untrained mind assents automatically. The trained mind examines first. 3 questions, applied to every thought that produces anxiety, shame, or paralysis. Is this actually true, or does it just feel true? Someone glanced away. That's a fact. Everyone finds me boring. That's an interpretation, not a fact, not close to a fact. Is this within my control? What other people think of you? No. What you say and do next? Yes. Is believing this useful? Does holding this thought make you more confident, more present, more capable? Or does it make you smaller, quieter, more likely to leave? If it isn't true, isn't in your control, and isn't useful, why are you believing it? Most people have never asked that question. They've accepted every thought their brain produced, as though the brain was a reliable narrator. It isn't. It's a survival machine with an anxiety bias, running on pattern recognition that was built for a world that no longer exists. The 3 questions don't require perfect answers. They require honest ones. And honest answers almost always reveal the same thing. The thought was an exaggeration, not a reflection of reality, a projection of fear onto a neutral event. Which brings us to the step that most people think is the final one, but isn't. Because questioning a thought and reframing it accurately still leaves the pattern intact, until you add step 3. If you've ever understood everything I've just said and still felt stuck, this is exactly why. You've noticed the thought, you've questioned it, you've told yourself it isn't true, and then it came back, louder. That's not failure. That's the gap between thinking differently and being different. And it's where almost every self-help approach stops. The Stoics didn't stop there, and neither will we. Your mind doesn't just think negatively, it exaggerates. Not occasionally, constantly. Because the brain that predicts the worst-case scenario and is wrong loses nothing. The brain that fails to predict it and is right loses everything. So your mind has a permanent bias toward exaggeration, not because you're broken, because you're human. Seneca understood this. He wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Not sometimes, most of the time, because most of what you fear has never happened, and most of what you catastrophize about is a story your mind built around a neutral event. The fix is not positive thinking. Positive thinking replaces one unexamined thought with another. I'm not good enough becomes I am amazing. Neither statement has been examined. Neither statement is reliable. The Stoic fix is neutral thinking, not optimism, accuracy. Here's how it works. You're in a relationship, a significant disagreement, words said that shouldn't have been, silence that followed. The negative version, they don't care about me. This is falling apart. I always destroy the good things in my life. The neutral version, we had a disagreement. That is one event. It says nothing about everything else. Same situation. No exaggeration in either direction. Just what actually happened. Marcus Aurelius practiced what he called the view from above. When a situation felt overwhelming, he would mentally step back, further and further, until the problem was visible from a sufficient distance. A heated argument seen from the street is one moment between two people. Seen from the city, invisible. Seen from space, gone. Most of what your mind catastrophizes about is invisible from sufficient distance. For every negative thought, find the neutral version, not the positive version, the factual, unexaggerated, accurate version, what actually happened, what is actually known, what is actually within your control. That is neutral thinking, and it is the most powerful cognitive tool the Stoics developed. But here's what nobody tells you. Neutral thinking stabilizes the mind. It does not change the pattern, because the pattern isn't only mental, it's behavioral. And behavior is where step 4 lives, the step most people skip, the step that makes everything else permanent. You've been avoiding a difficult conversation 3 weeks now, and every day you delay, the negative thought about it gets louder. It's going to go badly. They're going to react badly. Nothing good will come from this. And because the thought feels true, you delay again, which makes the thought feel truer, which makes the delay feel more justified. That is the loop. Thought to avoidance to confirmation to stronger thought, and it has one exit point. 1. Some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion. Things outside our control are body, property, reputation, command. Read that again. Your reputation, not in your control. What other people think of you, not in your control. Outcomes, not in your control. Your response, always in your control. Most negative thoughts are about things outside your control. The moment you identify this, they lose most of their power. Because you cannot lose what you never controlled. The second pillar is the discipline of assent. Epictetus taught that between every impression and every belief, there is a gap. Most people never find it. In that gap, you choose, not automatically, deliberately. Does this impression deserve my belief? Has it earned my trust? Most negative thoughts, examined honestly, have earned nothing. The third pillar is Seneca's insight on imagination. He understood that most human suffering is not caused by events. It is caused by the stories we build around events, the elaborations, the predictions, the catastrophizations. Remove the story, and what remains is almost always survivable, almost always smaller than the imagination made it, almost always neutral. 3 pillars, applied across 3 completely different lives. Marcus Aurelius, managing an empire in crisis. Epictetus, building freedom from within a condition of complete constraint. Seneca, facing the daily temptations of extreme wealth and political power. If the framework held under those conditions, it holds under yours. A framework without practice is philosophy. A framework with practice is transformation. Here's the daily system. 3 moments, 5 minutes total. Morning. Before you touch your phone, ask one question. What negative thought am I most likely to face today? Name it specifically. The thought that I'm going to fail the meeting, the thought that they're disappointed in me, the thought that I'm falling behind. A named thought has less power than an unnamed one. You have just reduced its impact. Before the day has started, during the day, the labeling practice, every negative thought gets 3 words before it. I am having the thought that, that's all. No analysis in the moment, no argument, just the label. The distance it creates is immediate. Then, when you have a moment, the 3 questions. Is it true? Is it in my control? Is it useful? One honest answer each, 30 seconds. Then, the one action, the thing the thought is most urgently stopping you from doing. Identify it. Do the smallest version of it today, not tomorrow, today. Evening. Seneca's Review. 3 questions before sleep. Where did a negative thought control my behavior today? What was the accurate, neutral version of that thought? What will I do differently tomorrow? Not to punish yourself, to learn from yourself, because reflection converts experience into skill, and skill, practiced daily, becomes identity. 21 days of consistent practice. The thoughts don't disappear, but they lose their automatic grip. You begin catching them before they become beliefs, before they become moods, before they become decisions, and slowly, without fanfare, you become someone different, not through willpower, through daily repetition of a better response. Here is the deepest truth in everything we've covered. You are not your thoughts, you are the one who hears them. That gap between the thinker and the thought, between the impression and the belief, between what your mind produces and what you choose to accept, that gap is where your freedom lives. Most people spend their entire lives never finding it, not because it doesn't exist, because no one told them to look. Epictetus, the man who owned nothing, who had every external freedom stripped away, understood this with a clarity that 2,000 years have not diminished. No man is free who is not master of himself, not master of his circumstances, not master of other people's opinions, not master of outcomes, master of himself. That mastery doesn't require perfect conditions. It doesn't require an easy life. It doesn't require the thoughts to stop. It requires only this, the decision, made daily, in ordinary moments, to examine the thought before you believe it, to question it before you follow it, to act despite it rather than obey it. Every time you do that, you are not just managing a moment, you are building a different person. And the person you are building, through these small daily decisions, is someone whose mind works for them, not against them. That is the fix. Not suppression, not replacement, not forced positivity, observation, examination, action. Your mind is working against you until you decide it isn't. What is the one negative thought that shows up most in your life? Not the dramatic one, the quiet one, the one that appears so regularly you've stopped questioning it. Name it in the comments. Don't filter it, because the moment you write it down, you've already started step 1. You've already created distance. You've already begun. If this video helped, subscribe. And if you want to go deeper, the Daily Stoic Journal and Mental Discipline course are linked below. Next, the same mind that generates negative thoughts is the one seeking approval from everyone around it. That video is next. Link in the description. Your mind is either your greatest obstacle or your greatest tool. The Stoics chose the second. So can you.